I'm stuck with this vicious female lead cultivation system, and my mission is to turn my innocent, first-love girlfriend, Chloe Peterson, into the ultimate villainess. But after she went dark, she actually imprisoned me. Now she tells me every day, the more you resist, the more excited I get. Help, what do I do? I admit on face. It wasn't that I didn't love Chloe, but this damn system in my head kept drilling it into me. I had to turn her into the most ruthless woman alive. Today's mission: when Chloe Peterson brings you homemade cookies, throw them in the trash in front of the entire class. It blared precisely as homeroom ended. I looked up. Chloe was walking towards me, clutching a delicate tin box, her steps tentative. She wore a white sundress today, the skirt swaying gently with each step, like a gardenia bobbing in the morning breeze. Her eyes, always a little dewy, looked at me with obvious hope and nervousness. Ethan, her voice was soft, a little too eager to please. I made some cookies. W, would you like to try one? A few classmates were already looking our way. Everyone knew Chloe had a crush on me. She had since the first day of freshman year. 3 years, and she'd been relentlessly bringing me breakfast, taking notes for me, waiting quietly on the sidelines with water and a towel when I played basketball. Everyone said Chloe Peterson was the sweetest, kindest girl in school, like a clear spring, too pure to ever want to taint. Everyone but me. Only I knew the incredible potential hidden beneath that facade of purity. I took the tin box, and when my fingertips brushed her cool skin, she visibly shivered, a faint blush dusting her cheeks. What kind? I asked, feigning indifference. Chocolate and matcha, your favorites. She whispered, her eyes sparkling. I opened the box. The delicate cookies were neatly arranged, their scent wafting up. Then, without a moment's hesitation, I lifted my hand and dumped the entire box into the trash can next to my desk. I'm over sweets, I said, not loudly, but loud enough for half the classroom to hear. The tin clanged against the rim of the bin, a jarring sound. Chloe froze, the color slowly draining from her face. Her usually tender eyes instantly clouded with unshed tears, but she stubbornly held them back. I'm sorry, she whispered, her fingers twisting the fabric of her sundress. I'll make savory ones next time. A few muffled gasps rippled through the room. Some glared at me, but no one dared to say anything. After all, in everyone's eyes, I was just the aloof campus heartthrob being relentlessly pursued by the most popular girl, yet remaining completely unmoved. Don't bother. I turned and walked away, not sparing her another glance. But my heart, hidden from her view, gave a tiny, painful squeeze. Mission complete. Villainy points +5. The system's prompt rang in my head. 3 years. Since the damn system latched onto me the first day of freshman year, I've been doing the same thing every day, finding new ways to hurt Chloe Peterson, watching her transform from that bright, confident girl into someone increasingly cautious, increasingly subservient, all for one ridiculous goal: to cultivate her into a villainess that met the system's standards. Host, there's no need for guilt. This is for her own good. The system's robotic voice explained. Only by becoming a villainess can she survive the plot of this world. I ignored its nonsense. After school, Chloe was still trailing behind me as usual. She always did this. No matter how much I humiliated or rejected her, she'd stubbornly reappear by my side the next day. Ethan, she jogged to catch up, holding out a beautifully wrapped small bag. This is that limited edition fountain pen you mentioned last week. I had my cousin bring it back from overseas for me. I glanced at it. It was indeed the expensive pen I'd offhandedly mentioned last week. Her eyes were still a little red, but a smile had already returned to her face, as if nothing had happened that morning. That kind of resilience, how precious it would be in any other context. I took the pen, turning it over in my hand for a moment. Thanks, I said. Her eyes immediately lit up, as if she'd just received the greatest reward in the world. Then I lifted my hand and dropped the pen into a storm drain by the side of the road. But I don't need it anymore. The pen tumbled into the dark opening, a faint splash echoing. Chloe's smile froze. This time, her tears finally broke free. Why? Her voice caught. I just wanted to be nice to you. I took a step closer, looking down at her. Because I hate how pathetic you are, I said coldly. like a stray dog I can't shake. She looked up abruptly, a flicker of something akin to anger in her eyes for the first time. But it vanished just as quickly. I get it. She wiped away her tears, forcing a smile. Then tomorrow, I won't bother you anymore. Her shoulders trembled as she said it, as if it had taken every ounce of her courage. My chest tightened, and I almost reached out to stop her. But in the end, I just stood there, watching her turn and run away. After that day, Chloe really did stop seeking me out. She'd still be in my line of sight, but she wouldn't approach me, wouldn't talk to me, wouldn't bring me breakfast anymore. In class, I'd occasionally catch her gaze. Her eyes still followed me, but something was subtly changing. The gentleness remained, but there was a layer to it I couldn't decipher. Excellent. Host training is showing initial results. The system evaluated. Continue to increase the stimuli. She will complete her transformation soon. I clenched my fist, my nails digging into my palm. A month later, at the annual homecoming gala, I finally saw the change I've been waiting for. That night, Chloe wore a black evening gown, its sleek design accentuating her slender waist and elegant curves. She had on subtle makeup, her long hair swept up, revealing the delicate line of her neck. She was no longer that timid gardenia. Now she was a black rose, quietly blooming with faint, hidden thorns. Several guys were gathered around her, flirting, and she handled them with practiced ease, a polite smile on her face. When I walked over, the chatter instantly died down. Everyone knew about our complicated history. Chloe Peterson. I called her name. She turned, a smile still on her lips, but her eyes were distant. Can I help you, Ethan? The formal address caught me off guard. In 3 years, it was the first time she hadn't called me Ethan. I want to talk, I said. Sorry, I'm a little busy right now. She swirled the drink in her hand. Maybe another time? That attitude completely infuriated me. Or rather, it infuriated the role I was supposed to be playing. I grabbed her wrist a little too hard. Now, she frowned, but didn't struggle, just smiled at the guys nearby. Excuse me for a moment. I pulled her to the balcony at the end of the hall. The night was thick, and distant neon lights painted the sky an ambiguous purple. What was that all about? I let go of her and demanded. I don't know what you mean. She rubbed her reddened wrist, her voice calm. Those guys, do you even know who they are? Of course, she smiled, a hint of defiance in it. Does it concern you, Ethan? I stared at her, suddenly noticing a tiny mole near the corner of her eye, like a beauty mark, adding a touch of allure. You've changed, I said. I have, she nodded softly. Thanks to you. The evening breeze ruffled the loose strands of hair around her face. Those eyes, once clear as day, were now as deep as the ocean. System alert. Villainy points significantly increased. Host, please continue to apply pressure. I took a deep breath and delivered the lines I prepared. You think this will get my attention? Don't be naive. No matter what you become, I'll never like a woman like you. The words were crueler than anything I'd said before. I waited for her to break, to cry, or to angrily retort. But she didn't. She just looked at me silently, then suddenly smiled. The laugh was soft, but it sent a chill down my spine. Ethan, she took a step forward, almost pressing against me, looking up. Do you hurt me like this every day because you actually care about me? Her breath brushed my chin, carrying a faint scent of alcohol. I was speechless. Or her hand rested lightly on my chest, feeling my erratic heartbeat. Do you actually enjoy watching me suffer for you? Her eyes gleamed dangerously in the night. In that moment, I knew something had completely derailed. Not according to the system's plan, but according to her own. You're drunk, I said, stepping back, trying to create distance. But she followed. I'm clearer than I've ever been, she whispered. Thank you for teaching me something, Ethan. Love and hate, they're just two sides of the same coin. She reached up and adjusted my tie. Her touch is soft as a lover's caress. Since you don't want my love, her fingertips brushed lightly over my Adam's apple. Then I'll give you something else. With that, she turned and walked away, her skirt drawing an elegant arc in the night breeze. I stood alone on the balcony, my heart hammering. The system chimed cheerfully. Congratulations, host. Villainy points have broken the critical threshold. Phase 1 mission complete. But I felt no joy whatsoever. In the distance, Chloe returned to the party, immediately surrounded by several guys. She accepted a drink, smiling as she clinked glasses with them, but her gaze cut through the crowd, landing precisely on me. That look was no longer one of humble adoration, nor wounded hurt. It was a possessiveness that was absolute, and a chilling madness. After the gala, I walked back to my dorm alone. The moonlight stretched my shadow long before me. Just as I was about to reach the dorm building, a figure stepped out from the shadows of a tree. Chloe Peterson. She leaned against a lamppost, the light sculpting the graceful curve of her body. Still, in her evening gown, it shimmered softly in the dim light. "Waiting for me?" I asked. She nodded, handing me an envelope. "What's this?" "A love letter," she smiled. "My last one." I took the envelope, feeling the thickness of the paper beneath my fingertips. "I spent 3 years loving you, Ethan," she whispered. "Starting tomorrow, I won't love you anymore." My heart plummeted. "What do you mean?" It means she took a step closer, almost pressing against me. Looking up, the rules of the game are about to change. Her fingers brushed lightly across my chin, a subtle, teasing touch. "Didn't you like watching me go crazy for you?" She stood on tiptoe, whispering in my ear, "Then I'll show you crazy." With that, she turned and walked away, not looking back. I stood rooted to the spot for a long time. The envelope in my hand felt heavy, as if it contained all 3 years of our history. The system issued a new prompt. Phase 2 mission initiated. Provoke target into first act of retaliation. I tore open the envelope. Inside was a thick stack of notepaper, but as I unfolded them, I froze. Each sheet was covered in red ink, filled with the same 2 words, mine. The handwriting, initially neat, grew increasingly frantic. The last few pages practically scratched into the paper, as if trying to carve those words into bone. In the bottom right corner of the last page, there was a small line. "You taught me to hate. Don't expect me to let go." I looked up toward where she'd vanished, the night breeze carrying the chill of the late hour. In that moment, I finally understood. I had truly succeeded in turning her into someone else. The lamppost stretched her shadow long. That slender silhouette in black finally melted into the darkness around the dorm building's corner, disappearing from view. I stood there, the edges of the heavy stack of notepaper in my hand almost crumpling under my grip. The night breeze carried a chill that couldn't disperse the turmoil in my heart. Mine. Pages of crimson, clawing and aggressive, like some obsessive curse, seared onto the paper and onto my retina. That small line on the last page carried an even more absolute chill. "You taught me to hate. Don't expect me to let go." The system's cold prompt sounded then. Phase 2 mission initiated. Provoke target into first act of retaliation. Reward. Villainy progress visualization. A translucent, game-like health bar appeared in the top left of my vision, labeled Chloe Peterson's villainy, currently at 35%. The progress bar was dark red, like congealed blood. I closed my eyes, stuffing the letters haphazardly back into the envelope. My fingertips brushed against the frantic scratches, a strange prickle of pain. Was this what I wanted? I didn't know. After that gala, Chloe really did change. She stopped wearing those fresh, delicate pastel dresses. Her wardrobe grew to include many blacks, deep reds, even dark greens. She started wearing makeup, her eyeliner winged, carrying a subtle, sharp edge. She was still beautiful, even more so, a beauty that was aggressive like a poisoned thorned rose. She no longer revolved around me, but her presence was stronger than ever. In class, she could clearly refute my previously stated opinions, her logic tight, her phrasing precise, earning frequent nods from the professors. For group projects, she became the most sought-after member, exceptionally capable, highly efficient, no longer the tag-along who needed my help to complete tasks. She still came to basketball games, but no longer just to bring water and towels for me. She'd distribute energy drinks to the entire team, including me, with a polite smile. Only, when she handed me a bottle, her fingertips would brush almost imperceptibly against the back of my hand, her gaze calm, yet carrying an air of scrutiny and appraisal, like a hunter assessing prey that had already stepped into a trap. Whispers started. Did Chloe turn from love to hate? Feels more like she just wised up. Ethan really was out of line before, but she's so fierce now, even more captivating. Shoot, keep it down, Ethan's looking. I pulled my gaze away, expressionless, but but the vague irritation in my chest grew heavier. On the system interface, that dark red progress bar would subtly twitch, slowly but surely climbing, every time she calmly retorted to me or looked at me with that detached yet profound gaze. 36%, 37%. She was like someone meticulously sharpening a blade, and I, the whetstone, seemed close to completing my purpose. This feeling of losing control was far from pleasant. The atmosphere before college application deadlines grew increasingly tense. The day we submitted our applications, the classroom was filled with a mix of anticipation and anxiety. I knew Chloe Peterson's dream school had always been Stanton University, a top-tier East Coast institution known for its rigorous academic environment. As for me, post-college application choice has triggered a critical plot node. The system's voice was emotionless. Option 1, top-tier U.S. university. Option 2, study abroad. Please choose. I stared at the two words on the virtual panel, study abroad. My heart felt like it was being squeezed. I knew what this meant. Long-term separation could dilute many emotions, whether love or hate. Or it could foster something far more extreme. Option 2, study abroad. I muttered internally. Choice confirmed. Plotline advancing. I picked up my pen and filled out the application form for a renowned university far across the Pacific on the West Coast. A whole ocean separated it from Stanton. I could feel a gaze burning into my back. I didn't turn around. I knew it was her. After school, she cornered me in the stairwell of the academic building. The setting sun's rays through the window cast an ethereal golden edge around her. She wore a simple school uniform, yet radiated an inexplicable aura of dominance. "You're studying abroad?" she asked directly, her voice calm, devoid of emotion. "Yeah," I replied, trying to walk past her. She blocked my way, her arm held firmly across my chest. "Why?" she asked, looking straight into my eyes. Her makeup was light today, making the turbulent emotions churning in her depths even clearer. Something forcibly suppressed, almost bursting free. No real reason. Just wanted to go. I averted my gaze, unwilling to meet hers. "Is it because of me?" She took a step closer, the distance between us so little I could feel her breath. "Because I changed? Because I'm harder to control now? So you want to run?" Her tone was sharply mocking. "You're overthinking it," I said coldly. "You were never part of my future plans." The moment those words left my lips, I saw something shatter in her eyes, but it was quickly masked by a deeper darkness. System alert. Villainy points 40%. She laughed, a low sound with a hint of madness. "Never included me," she repeated, her finger lightly tapping my chest, sliding down the buttons of my school shirt. "Ethan, you're lying." Her fingertips were cold, and through the thin fabric, they felt like an electric current. "Your heart is beating so fast." She tilted her head up, her gaze like a hook. "Are you scared? Scared of me? Or scared of yourself?" I violently shoved her hand away, hard enough to make her stumble, her back hitting the wall with a dull thud. She let out a soft gasp, but seemed to feel no pain, still smiling as she watched me, her eyes obsessive and burning. "It's fine," she said, smoothing a few stray hairs, her voice terrifyingly soft. "You can go, to the ends of the earth." She paused, then said, word for word, clearly, "I will find you." In that moment, the sunset dipped below the horizon, the last sliver of light gone, plunging the hallway into gloom. Her face was in shadow. Only her eyes shone, startlingly bright, like the eyes of a beast lurking in the dark. My heart gave a sudden leap, and an unprecedented chill crawled up my spine. Finals ended. Graduation ceremony. Senior photos. Everything followed its course. There was no more interaction between Chloe and me. She seemed to have truly let go, focusing on her own affairs, laughing and chatting with classmates, as if the girl with the crazed eyes in the stairwell had just been my hallucination. Only occasionally, through gaps in the crowd, would I catch her gaze. Calm, deep, like a frozen lake, yet with unknown currents stirring beneath. The villainy points on the system interface remained at 45%, unchanging, like the calm before a storm. Acceptance letters gradually arrived. I received my offer from the overseas university as hoped. The departure date drew closer. My parents began preparing my luggage, endlessly listing precautions for life in a foreign country. I'd occasionally scroll through my classmates' social media feeds and see that Chloe had also received her acceptance letter to Stanton. In the photo, she stood outside the university gate, smiling brightly, her eyes clear, as if she'd reverted to that innocent, lovely girl. For a moment, I almost thought it was all over. Had my mission failed? Or had she finally moved on? Deep down, a voice warned me, impossible. The night before my departure, I was packing my last bag. My phone screen lit up with an unfamiliar local number. On an impulse, I answered. The line was silent, save for shallow breathing. After several seconds, just as I was about to hang up, her voice spoke, soft and unervingly calm. Ethan, it was Chloe Peterson. I gripped my phone, saying nothing. What time's your flight tomorrow? She asked. 9 a.m. Oh, she replied, followed by another long silence. Just when I thought she wouldn't speak again, she murmured something, her voice a whisper, yet it pierced my ear distinctly. Have a safe trip. Then, the call disconnected. Only the dial tone remained. I stood rooted, the city's neon lights outside, casting strange patterns across my room. Those words, have a safe trip, felt like a cold needle pricking my nerve endings. No threat, no resentment, not even a clear blessing. But it unsettled me more than any harsh words could have. Without warning, the system blared an alert. Warning, target's emotional state showing drastic fluctuations. Villainy points continuously accumulating, nearing critical threshold. Host, please ensure your safety. In the top left corner of my vision, the dark red progress bar began to flicker violently, the numbers wildly jumping between 45% and 60%, utterly unstable, like a bomb about to detonate. The next day, at the airport, my parents, eyes red, waved me through security. I dragged my suitcase, glancing back at the bustling departure lounge. No familiar silhouette. She hadn't come. Good. I turned and headed for the gate, my heart feeling both hollowed out and as if a huge weight had been lifted. After over 10 hours of flight, crossing the ocean, a foreign country, an unfamiliar environment, new faces, I started adapting to student life abroad, attending classes, spending hours in the library, joining clubs, making new friends. Time seemed to wash everything away. Memories of Chloe Peterson also slowly began to fade, becoming a vague, unpleasant mark for my adolescence. The system hadn't actively issued missions for a long time. The villainy progress bar remained dim, unchanged, stuck at its last flickering 60%. I'd occasionally wonder if distance truly severed everything. Until 3 months later, deep into the night, I was scrambling to finish a report in my dorm. The laptop screens glow harsh in the darkness. My phone suddenly vibrated. It was an international call, the caller ID showing a number from back home. A strong premonition seized me. I stared at the digits, my heart beginning to pound uncontrollably. After 7 or 8 rings, I pressed answer. Hello. The other end was deafening with music, mixed with indistinct voices and the clinking of glasses. Like a bar or a party. No one spoke, just the clamorous background noise and a faint, almost drowned-out sound of breathing. Who is this? I asked again, my voice unconsciously tightening. The music suddenly softened, as if someone had moved to a quieter spot. Then, I heard her laugh. Low, tinged with a tipsy haze and an indescribable. Danger, Ethan. Her voice, distorted slightly by the phone line, still struck my eardrums clearly. Is the moon abroad? She paused, her tone casually cruel. Any rounder? I shot up from my chair, knocking over the water glass by my hand. Cold water soaked my pants, chilling me. Chloe Peterson? Where are you? My voice was dry. She didn't answer my question, just continued, speaking slowly, as if savoring each word. I applied for the exchange student program, she said, a soft laugh. Funny, it's your university. My breath hitched. I'll be there next month. On the other end, I heard the sound of glass shattering, what seemed like a man's startled cry, and her sharp reprimand. The background noise became chaotic again. Then, her voice was close to the receiver once more, with a breathless excitement and an undeniable declaration. Wait for me. My dear. What? Stone. The call ended abruptly. The dial tone returned, jarringly loud in the silent night. I stood there, my hands and feet icy cold. The laptop screen went dark from disuse, plunging the dorm into darkness. Only my phone screen still emitted a faint glow, illuminating my rigid face. In the top left of my vision, that dark red progress bar, dormant for months, now flickered crimson with unprecedented intensity. The number displayed, stark and clear, 85%. Outside, the foreign moon hung coldly, its pale light casting a stark glow. I instinctively touched my neck, as if I could already feel the suffocating grip of icy chains. She was coming, with honed fangs and sharpened claws. The hunt had begun. The dial tone rang in my ear for a long time after the call disconnected, until the screen finally went dark, and the dorm room was left with only the cold glow of that foreign moon seeping through the window. I stood there, my hands and feet freezing, the chills spreading from my fingertips, through my blood, to every part of my body. Next month, wait for me. Whetstone. These words, delivered in her tipsy, excited tone, carried an unnerving weight. In the top left of my vision, the crimson, flickering 85% was like an ominous countdown, silently proclaiming the end of my peaceful days. I took a deep breath, trying to suppress the chaotic tremor in my chest, and bent to pick up the overturned water glass. Water had pooled on the floor, soaking several scattered printouts, the ink bleeding into ugly smudges. Much like my current state of mind, for the next few weeks, I felt like I was waiting for an unknown judgment to fall. In class, my gaze would unconsciously drift to the doorway. The slightest rustle would make my heart skip a beat. Studying in the library, even the softest footsteps behind me would instantly make my spine rigid. Eating in the dining hall, amidst the bustling crowd, I'd instinctively search for a figure that probably wouldn't even appear. She was like an invisible phantom, arriving early, infiltrating every crack in my life, omnipresent. The system remained silent. Only that glaring 85% villainy progress bar constantly reminding me that danger was approaching. I started having nightmares. In them, there was always that crimson, mind-filled notepaper fluttering down like snowflakes, burying me. The suffocating feeling was terrifyingly real. Or I'd dream of her in the dimly lit stairwell, watching me with those obsessive, burning eyes, asking again and again, "Why did you run?" Then, the scene would shift to a completely unfamiliar, dark room, cold chains wrapping around my ankles, making a crisp metallic sound. I'd wake up from these bizarre dreams over and over, my forehead soaked in cold sweat. Days became even harder to endure. I tried to numb myself with intense studying and socializing. I joined the climbing club, which I'd never been interested in before, exhausting myself on the rock wall, letting muscle soreness replace my inner unease. I went to bars with my new friends, briefly forgetting the upcoming exchange student amidst the deafening music and noisy crowds. But whenever night fell, and I was alone, that feeling of being watched, of being targeted, would resurface vividly. I even began to suspect she had already arrived, hiding somewhere, observing my every move, enjoying my apprehension. This agonizing limbo was almost driving me mad. A month passed in this anxious wait, feeling both impossibly long and fleeting. The day the exchange students officially reported finally arrived. That morning, the sky was overcast, a light drizzle falling, the entire campus shrouded in a gray, misty haze. I deliberately avoided the building where the International Student Office was located, spending the whole day holed up in the engineering library, the farthest one from there. I forced myself to stare at the complex circuit diagrams on my computer screen, but the lines and symbols seemed to warp into twisted, red handwriting, all screaming mine. By 4 p.m., the rain still hadn't stopped. My phone buzzed, a message in a club group chat. There was a small welcome party that night for new members, including the exchange students this semester. My finger hovered over the screen, hesitant to open the details. Go or not go? Logic told me to stay far away. But deep down, there was a twisted curiosity and a faint expectation. I wanted to know what she looked like now. The woman who had tormented me for a month robbed me of my peace. This conflicting feeling filled me, with self-loathing. In the end, I went. The party was held in the common area of a student apartment complex near campus. When I arrived, the place was already packed. Music, chatter, and clinking glasses mingled, the air thick with the scent of alcohol and perfume. I stood by the door, my gaze quickly sweeping over the crowd. Unknown faces, some vaguely familiar, mostly local students, a few Asian-looking exchange students. She wasn't there. I couldn't tell if I was relieved or inexplicably disappointed. Grabbing a drink, I found a relatively quiet corner against the wall, trying to make myself as inconspicuous as possible. The party atmosphere was lively, people chatting in small groups, playing games. I half listened to a few people nearby discussing the new Chinese exchange student this semester. Heard she's a looker, really beautiful, but kinda cold. Oh yeah? Haven't seen her yet. Which department? Business school, I think. My heart started to pound uncontrollably again. Just then, the common area door swung open again. The hubbub seemed to pause for a moment. A slender figure, silhouetted against the hallway light, walked in. She wore a dark emerald velvet gown, which made her skin seem even fairer. Her long hair was swept up, revealing the elegant, delicate line of her neck. Her face wore exquisite makeup, her features sharper and more striking than in high school, stripped of any lingering innocence, replaced by a cold yet captivating aura. It was Chloe Peterson. Unlike the aggressive beauty of her high school days, now she was like a piece of finely carved cold jade, radiating an untouchable presence, yet impossible to look away from. In her hand, she carried a small clutch bag, her gaze calmly sweeping the room, as if searching for something. Then, her eyes cut through the bobbing heads, landing precisely on my corner. On me. Our eyes met. Time seemed to freeze in that moment. The surrounding chatter, music, and crowd all seemed to hit a mute button, rapidly fading into a blurry background. Her gaze was calm, devoid of hatred, anger, or any of the intense emotions I'd anticipated. It was like looking at an old acquaintance, long familiar, nothing more. But that very calmness unnerved me even more. She tilted her head slightly, a faint curve on her lips that wasn't quite a smile, more like a symbol of acknowledgement. Acknowledging I was here, acknowledging I saw her. Then, she shifted her gaze, as if I were merely an insignificant in a crowd. She walked towards a group of business school students chatting nearby, naturally joining their conversation. Her demeanor was proper, her conversation elegant, occasionally punctuated by faint smiles. She quickly became the center of their small circle. She didn't even spare me another glance. This complete, dismissive attitude felt like a tiny needle, pricking the most uncomfortable spot in my heart. I had imagined countless scenarios for our reunion. She might charge up in anger to confront me. She might mock me with cold words. She might stare at me with those obsessive, crazed eyes. But I had never imagined such calm indifference. As if everything from the past 3 years, the entanglement, the hurt, the deep-seated love and hate, had merely been a delusion of my own. On the system interface, the crimson progress bar began to climb slowly, steadily. 86%. 87%. She didn't even need to do anything. Simply ignoring me was enough to make that villainy meter rise. I leaned against the wall, the condensation on my drink glass chilling my fingertips. I watched her effortlessly navigate the crowd, like a uniquely charming star that had suddenly entered the room, attracting everyone's attention. Several guys clearly showed intense interest fawning over her. She handled them with ease, neither overly warm nor making anyone feel slighted. Her poise was perfect. Was this her transformed self? Calm, rational, charismatic, yet possessing an unfathomable distance. More dangerous than her overtly aggressive high school self. Halfway through the party, there was an interactive game segment that required random grouping. As luck would have it, she and I were placed in the same group, along with 2 other local students, a guy and a girl. When she came over to our group, she merely gave me a fleeting glance and a nod, acknowledging me, then turned to the other 2 members, introducing herself with a polite smile and fluent English. My name is Chloe Peterson. I'm from China, an exchange student this semester. Her pronunciation was flawless, with a soft, pleasing accent. When it was my turn, I gave my name, Ethan Hayes. Her expression didn't change at all, as if she'd heard a completely unfamiliar name. The game rules were simple, Pictionary. Our group was lucky enough to draw some tricky cards. It was Chloe's turn to act out, and I was to guess. She stood in the center of the area, the light catching her, making the dark emerald velvet gown shimmer with an obscure sheen. She glanced at the card, then looked up at me. In that moment, her gaze finally shifted ever so slightly, no longer entirely calm or dismissive, but with a hint of an indescribable cat-and-mouse playfulness. She lifted her hand, performing no conventional charade motions. Instead, she gently tapped her left chest over her heart. Then, her fingers slowly moved down, tracing over the soft fabric, stopping at her slender waist. Her movements were slow, deliberately provocative, almost intimate. Her gaze, however, remained fixed on me. A few suggestive whistles and soft laughs rippled through the onlookers. The other two group members looked bewildered, clearly missing the hint. Only I understood her silent message. The word on the card was cage. Or rather, what she conveyed was my cage. My blood seemed to freeze in that instant. Seeing my face suddenly change, the faint curve on her lips deepened slightly. It carried the cold, triumphant air of a victor. The system prompt chimed in my mind, crystal clear, villainy points 90%. The game continued, the noise unabated. But I felt everything around me recede. All that remained was her, standing in the light, watching me with eyes that saw everything, controlled everything. Like an elegant executioner, casually wiping her blade before the deed, telling me there was no escape. The party finally dispersed before midnight. The rain had stopped, and the night air carried a damp chill. I walked back with a few classmates heading the same way. As we passed the garden beneath the apartment building, I unconsciously slowed down, glancing at the exchange student dorm complex nearby. Most of the windows were lit, showing blurry figures. I didn't know which room she lived in. "Hey, Ethan, what are you looking at?" Jack, walking beside me, nudged my elbow and followed my gaze, a knowing grin on his face. "Oh, checking out the new Chinese girl, are we? She's definitely hot, right? Heard her name's Bai." I pulled my gaze away, mumbling, "Let's go." Just as we turned to leave, the glass door of the exchange student complex below swung open. Chloe Peterson walked out. She had changed out of her elegant velvet gown, now wearing a simple white t-shirt and light blue jeans, her hair down, looking fresh and clean like the girl next door. But the item in her hand was strikingly out of place with her casual attire. It was a small, silver spray can-like object. She walked over to the flower bed by the lamppost, where a stray cat was curled up. She crouched down, and with a gentle motion, aimed the spray can at the wary feline and pressed the nozzle. A faint, almost pheromone-like scent diffused into the air. The previously guarded cat sniffed, then slowly relaxed, even approaching her, rubbing against her fingers. She gently stroked the cat's back, her profile appearing remarkably soft in the lamplight. Then, she looked up, her gaze again accurately finding me, standing a short distance away. Her face was expressionless. She simply watched me. In her hand, she still held that small silver spray can. She lightly shook the can at me. A cold, eerie curve lifted her lips, as if to say, "See, taming a disobedient stray cat is actually quite simple." Then, she looked away, continuing to softly pet the now incredibly docile stray cat, as if that meaningful glance had just been another one of my illusions. Jack, beside me, whistled. Wow, didn't expect her to be such an animal lover. I stood there, the night breeze blowing, but it couldn't dispel the creeping chill in my heart. That silver spray can. Was she hinting at something? Villainy points, 91%. The number on the system interface flickered again. I turned, almost hastily, and quickly walked away from that place. My retreating back, perhaps in her eyes, held a hint of panicked escape. Back in my dorm, I closed the door. The world finally fell silent. I leaned against the door, exhaling a long breath, feeling as if all my strength had been drained. My phone screen lit up with a new friend request. The profile picture was a pure, impenetrable blackness. The verification message contained only 3 words: Whetstone. I stared at the request, my finger hovering over the screen, unmoving for a long time. The moon outside, having emerged from behind the clouds at some point, cast cold light into the room, creating long, window-frame shadows on the floor. Like icy bars, she knew all my weaknesses. She knew how to use the slightest gesture, the calmest gaze, the most casual action, to disrupt my mind, to pluck the string of fear. This was only the beginning. I closed my eyes. Her image flashed in my mind, crouching under the lamppost, stroking the tamed stray cat, then looking up at me. Cold, eerie, with an undeniable possessiveness. I didn't accept the friend request, but I knew it was meaningless. She was like air, infiltrating every corner of my life. The next day, in a mandatory business school general education class, I deliberately arrived 5 minutes late, slipping in through the back door and finding the farthest corner seat. As soon as I sat down, I caught a familiar, faint cold scent. I looked up. She was sitting 2 rows ahead of me, diagonally. Today, she wore a simple white button-down, her hair loosely tied back, revealing the fair skin of her neck. She seemed completely oblivious to my arrival, intently watching the lecturer, occasionally lowering her head to take notes. The professor was explaining a case study. I forced myself to concentrate, but my peripheral vision kept straying towards her. During the break, the professor left the classroom. She closed her notebook, stood up, seemingly to get water. Her seat was by the aisle, mine in the corner. For her to leave, she would have to pass me. I lowered my head, pretending to read my textbook, but my heart stubbornly sped up. Footsteps drew closer. That wisp of cold scent became clearer. She stopped by my desk. I had to look up. She looked down at me, her eyes calm and unblinking, an empty water bottle in her hand. "Excuse me." Her voice was also calm, like asking a stranger. "Could you move, please? You're blocking the aisle." Only then did I realize my backpack strap was on the floor, indeed, slightly obstructing the path. I immediately pulled the strap up and shifted my body. "Thanks," she said flatly, walking past me without a glance. No extra eye contact, no special tone. Just like she would treat any unfamiliar student blocking her way. Villainy points 92%. The system's cold prompt rang out. I gripped my pen tightly. This feeling of being completely ignored, as if I had never left any trace in her life, was more suffocating than direct hatred. She returned with water, passed me just as calmly, and went back to her seat. For the rest of the class, I barely heard a word. When the bell rang, she packed her things, quickly leaving the classroom with the flow of students, never once looking back at me. I sat there until the classroom was mostly empty. That afternoon, at the library, I deliberately chose a secluded window seat. Just as I opened my laptop, someone sat down across from me. It was Chloe Peterson. She carried several thick business textbooks. Seeing me, her face showed a perfectly calibrated, apologetic surprise. "Sorry, I didn't realize this seat was taken," she said, making as if to stand up. "It's fine." I heard my voice a little dry. "It's not taken." "Thanks." She sat back down, placed her books on the table, then put on her headphones, opened her laptop, and began to study intently, as if I were just an insignificant piece of furniture. Sunlight streamed through the window, casting delicate shadows on her lowered eyelashes. Her profile was soft and focused, seemingly harmless, but I felt like I was sitting on pins and needles. The sound of her typing, the rustle of turning pages, even her shallow breathing, were all amplified, disrupting my thoughts. Villainy points 93%. I tried to concentrate on my research paper, but my gaze kept involuntarily drifting towards her. She seemed to be grappling with a problem, her brow slightly furrowed, unconsciously tapping her chin with the end of her pen. This gesture was exactly the same as in high school. Back then, when she couldn't solve a math problem, she'd do the same thing, then lean over and quietly ask me, "Ethan, how do you do this problem?" Memories flooded back, sharp and painful. I quickly pulled my gaze away, staring at the screen, but I couldn't read a single word. "Excuse me." Her voice suddenly broke the silence. I looked up. She had removed her headphones at some point and was looking at me, holding a pen and an open textbook. "May I bother you for a moment?" She pointed to a section of concept explanation in the book, her tone polite yet distant. "I'm having a little trouble understanding this economic model. I noticed you were looking at related research earlier. Could you help me explain it?" Her eyes were clear, filled with pure, inquisitive confusion, as if she genuinely was just an ordinary classmate humbly asking for help with an academic problem. I looked at the spot she was pointing to. It was a relatively basic concept. Given her ability to absorb knowledge, there was no way she didn't understand it. She was acting, and I had to play along. I took a deep breath, tried to use a calm tone, and explained it simply. She listened attentively, occasionally nodding. "Oh, I see. I understand now." She offered a faint, enlightened smile. "Thank you, Ethan." Villainy points, 94%. That smile felt like a needle pricking my heart. "No problem," I heard myself say stiffly. She put her headphones back on and continued studying, as if the interlude had never happened. But I could no longer find peace. Her every glance, every word, every seemingly unintentional action was precisely tormenting my nerves. This psychological torture was more effective than any direct attack. A few days later, at the climbing club activity, I geared up, channeling all my frustration and unease into the rock wall, focusing on every handhold, every push. Sweat dripped down my temples, muscles trembling slightly from overuse. When I finally reached the top and hit the bell, a round of applause erupted below. I looked down. She had arrived at some point, standing at the edge of the crowd in simple athletic wear, looking up at me. Seeing that I noticed her, she raised her hands and clapped a few times, softly, deliberately. Her face was expressionless, but her eyes, in the bright lights of the gym, were startlingly luminous, like assessing the quality of a possession. I released the safety rope and rappelled down, my steps a little unsteady as I landed. The club leader enthusiastically introduced her. "Ethan, this is Chloe Peterson, a new member and exchange student. You two know each other, right? Both from US." She stepped forward, extending her hand to me, her smile polite and graceful. "Hello, Ethan Hayes. Please guide me in the future." I looked at her outstretched hand, hesitated for a moment, then took it. Her fingertips were cool, her grip light a fleeting touch. "You climbed really well just now," she said, with appropriate praise in her tone. "Very clean and fluid movements." "Thanks." I released her hand, feeling as if the spot she'd touched had been branded with a hot iron. Villainy points, 95%. "I'm really interested in climbing, but I don't have much experience," she turned to the leader, her voice carrying a perfectly pitched mix of slight trouble and anticipation. "I was wondering if Ethan could be my instructor. It would be easier to communicate." The leader immediately looked at me. "Ethan, what do you think? Could I refuse?" In front of everyone. To refuse to help a compatriot new member for a ridiculous reason? I saw a flicker of almost imperceptible cunning in her eyes. "Sure," I heard myself say. "That's wonderful." Her smile deepened, but her eyes remained cold. "Thank you, Professor H. Hayes." The word professor, uttered from her lips, carried a cloying yet dangerous implication. For the next practice session, I had no choice but to stand by her, guiding her through equipment setup and basic techniques. She was a very diligent student, occasionally asking naive questions. "Professor Hayes, is this how you click the safety lock? I'm afraid I'll fall if I do it wrong." She held the carabiner, looking up at me with innocent eyes. I had to lean closer, inspecting the lock in her hand. As the distance closed, that cold scent enveloped me again. Her hair would occasionally brush against my arm, causing a subtle tickle. That's right. I quickly checked, then immediately stepped back, creating distance. She didn't seem to notice my evasion, continuing to diligently practice basic movements. But when she made her first attempt to climb, her foot slipped, and she gasped as she slid down. I en belay, instinctively tightened the rope, my arm inevitably wrapping around her waist, steadying her firmly. Her back pressed tightly against my chest, and through the thin athletic wear, I could feel the warmth of her body and a slight tremor. "I'm so sorry, Professor Hayes. I'm just so clumsy." She turned her head, her breath almost brushing my earlobe, her voice carrying a trace of a startled catch. But in those eyes, so close to mine, my reflection was clearly visible, devoid of any panic. Only the cold, triumphant amusement of a plan succeeding. I let go of her as if burned, pulling away. "Watch your footing." My voice was hoarse. "I will." She turned back to the rock wall, a faint curve on her lips. Villainy points, 96%. When the activity ended, I practically fled the climbing gym. That evening, I received a new text message from that unfamiliar number. Professor Hayes, thank you for protecting me today. Your arms are very strong. Attached was a candid photo of me reaching the top of the rock wall, sunlight streaming through the skylight, sweat highlighting my muscles. The photo's angle was perfectly chosen, carrying an almost scrutinizing possessiveness. I didn't reply. I deleted the message immediately, but the image was seared into my mind, along with the warmth of her body when she pressed against me, and those cold, smiling eyes. I knew she was meticulously weaving an invisible net, step by step, in her own way. And I, it seemed, was walking into that net, step by step, according to her script. This realization sent a chill through me, bone deep. That weekend, the business and engineering departments had a mixer at a popular student bar. I really didn't want to go, but Jack and Mike from my lab dragged me along. Ethan, you need to loosen up. Look at you lately, you're out of it. Jack handed me a beer. The bar lights were hazy, the music deafening. We found a booth and sat down, surrounded by the raucous crowd. I barely had a few sips, my gaze instinctively sweeping through the throng. Then I saw her. Chloe Peterson was sitting in another booth not far off, surrounded by several guys. Tonight, she wore a black slip dress, accentuating her figure, stark white against the dim lighting. She held a cocktail, listening to a blonde guy next to her, a faint smile playing on her lips. I knew the blonde guy, Brian, from the university basketball team, a notorious playboy. As Brian spoke, his hand started to get a little too familiar, trying to wrap around Chloe's shoulder. My heart instantly tightened, but the next second, Chloe merely shifted slightly, artfully dodging Brian's hand. At the same time, she raised her glass, gesturing subtly to him, her smile unchanging, but her eyes instantly cooled, holding a warning that brooked no trespass. Brian's hand froze mid-air, his smile turning awkward. Then he sheepishly pulled it back. She hadn't even said a word, yet she defused his offense. Villainy points, 97%. I looked away, chugging a mouthful of beer, but the cold liquid couldn't quench the inexplicable fire in my chest. Whoa, check out the new exchange student over there. She's something else, Mike whistled. But she looks tough. Brian just got shot down. Jack leaned in, lowering his voice. Ethan, I heard she's been hanging around you? From a climbing club? No, I immediately denied. Just a few instruction sessions. Really, Jack sounded skeptical. Well, some guy's about to make his move. Can't miss out on a catch like that. No sooner had he finished speaking than we saw David, the notorious meathead from our engineering department, a nearly 2-meter tall, heavily muscled football defensive lineman, swaying his way towards Chloe's booth with a drink in hand. David was clearly drunk, his face flushed, his eyes fixed on Chloe, his target obvious. Oh, Mike frowned. David doesn't care about anything when he's drunk. That girl's in trouble. Brian and his friends, seeing the mountain-like David approaching, visibly deflated, instinctively moving aside a bit. David plopped down next to Chloe, shaking the entire booth. He gruffly slurred in English. Hey, beautiful alone. Have a drink. He pushed a shot of hard liquor towards Chloe. Chloe's smile vanished. She set down her own glass, leaned back, creating distance, and replied in clear English, Sorry, I'm not drinking. Please leave. Don't be a spoilsport. David chuckled lewdly, reaching out to grab Chloe's wrist. Just one drink. Everyone around looked over. Some frowned, some watched for entertainment, but no one dared to step forward and stop the clearly drunken David. My heart instantly tightened. I almost stood up and rushed over immediately. But just before David's crude fingers could touch Chloe Peterson, she suddenly looked up, her gaze cutting through the crowd, landing precisely on me. Her eyes were calm, even holding a hint of inquiry, as if asking, what are you waiting for? Villainy points, 98%. The system's prompt was like a final death knell. Almost simultaneously, an inexplicable force propelled me. I abruptly stood up, pushed through the crowd, and strode over. The instant David's crude fingers were about to touch Chloe's slender wrist, my hand clamped down on David's wrist first. She said no drinking. My voice was not loud, but in a brief lull in the music, it was remarkably clear. The entire booth instantly went silent. Everyone stared at me in surprise. David, bleary-eyed, turned his head, saw it was me, and grinned. Oh, it's you Chinese kid? trying to be a hero. He tried to shake off my hand, but my grip was tight. Years of climbing had given me far stronger grip and arm strength than most. David tried to shake me off and failed, losing face. The alcohol surged, and his other hand balled into a fist, swinging at me. "Let go!" Several gasps rose from around us. I sidestepped his punch, simultaneously tripping him subtly with my foot, using his own forward momentum to send his large frame sprawling to the floor. With a dull thud, David hit the ground, momentarily dazed. I released his wrist, stood there, looking down at him, my voice cold. Do I need to say it again? She's not interested. That entire section of the bar went quiet. The music still played, but all eyes were fixed on this spot. Jack and Mike pushed their way over, standing behind me, wary of David, who was grumbling and trying to get up from the floor. Brian and his friends exchanged glances, saying nothing. Chloe Peterson sat there silently the whole time, as if none of this concerned her. Only then did she slowly stand up and walk to my side. She didn't look at the disheveled David on the floor, nor the shocked crowd around us. She just looked up at me, the light dancing in her eyes. Then, under everyone's gaze, she reached out, gently linked her arm through mine, and leaned slightly against me. Her voice was soft, but loud enough for those nearby to hear, carrying a tender, dependent tone. "Ethan, let's go. It's a bit loud here." Her fingertips, through the thin fabric, sent a cool sensation. Her body was close, that cold scent enveloping me once more. Villainy points, 99%. I didn't push her away. Under everyone's surprised, envious, or suggestive gazes, I let her hold my arm. We turned and left the booth, walking out of the noisy bar. Jack whistled loudly from behind us. The night breeze was cool. The moment we stepped out of the bar, she immediately let go of my hand, creating distance as if that intimate, dependent posture had been an illusion. Her face reverted to its detached calm. "Thanks," she said flatly, her tone unreadable. "You did that on purpose, didn't you?" I looked into her eyes, trying to find a crack. "Did what on purpose?" she countered, her gaze innocent. "Being harassed? Or making you step in?" I was speechless. "I was just having a drink," she said, smoothing a few strands of hair the night wind had ruffled. "As for why you stepped in, perhaps it was a subconscious protective instinct, or you just couldn't stand it." She paused, a faint, cold curve lifting the corner of her lips. "After all, you once said you hated my pathetic demeanor. Now that I'm not pathetic, are you?" Instead, finding it harder to let go. Her words were like a precise surgeon's knife, dissecting parts of my own heart I didn't even want to delve into. Villainy points, 99.5%. The progress bar flickered again, inching impossibly close to the critical threshold. I looked at her, the night breeze lifting her skirt. She stood under the lamppost, like a black datura blooming on a cliff edge, beautiful, deadly. "What exactly do you want?" My voice held a hoarseness I hadn't noticed. She took a step forward, closing the distance between us until I could feel her breath. Her gaze fell to my lips, then slowly moved up to meet my eyes. Those eyes, once clear as day, were now unfathomably deep, swirling with currents I couldn't comprehend. "What do I want?" she repeated softly, with a slow, deliberate cruelty. "I want to give back everything you inflicted upon me, little by little. I want you to taste what it's like to yearn for what you can't have, to be unable to control yourself, to feel the taste of being controlled." Her finger lightly tapped my chest over my heart. "It's beating so fast here. Are you scared? Or are you excited?" Her fingertips, through my clothes, sent a cool sensation that felt like electricity racing through my entire body. The system issued a sharp warning. "Alert! Villainy points nearing critical threshold. 100% will trigger irreversible plotline. Host, proceed with extreme caution." The Crimson Progress bar flickered frantically, showing 99.8%. I abruptly stepped back, creating distance between us, my heart pounding, my breathing erratic. She watched my hasty retreat, then let out a soft, satisfied chuckle. "The game has only just begun, Ethan." With that, she turned and walked away, her steps unhurried, disappearing into the night. I stood alone outside the bar, the night wind blowing, but unable to dispel the heat in my heart and the almost suffocating sense of oppression. My phone vibrated. A text message from that unfamiliar number. Just one sentence, accompanied by a picture of me in the bar, my face grim as I grip David's wrist. "You look hot tonight." I stare at the message and the candid photo. A chill shot from my feet to the top of my head. She had been watching. From the very beginning, she had been watching. And I, like her puppet on strings, every step was part of her calculation. Reacting defensively, playing the cool guy passively, satisfying her twisted desire for control. This realization filled me with a complex mix of powerlessness and anger. In the top left of my vision, the Crimson Progress bar finally settled at 99.9%. Only a fraction left. After that night, I deliberately avoided every situation where I might run into Chloe Peterson. I requested a different time slot for my general education class. I stopped attending climbing club activities. I even changed the library I frequented. I had to break her relentless pace, if only for a temporary reprieve. The crimson 99.9% on the system interface hung over my head like a sword of Damocles, reminding me that the final critical point could arrive at any moment. A week passed in calm. She didn't send any new texts, nor did she accidentally appear before me. This abnormal tranquility, however, made me even more uneasy. Friday afternoon, I got a call from my advisor asking me to come to his office to discuss a sudden collaboration project opportunity. The delegation is from a major U.S. corporation, very well connected, and they specifically asked to see our lab's latest achievements, especially the AI recognition module you worked on, my advisor said, excited. "Ethan, this is a huge chance. If they're impressed, it could lead to joint development or even direct investment." I packed up my things and hurried to the engineering lab building. My advisor's office was on the top floor. The elevator doors opened, and I walked quickly towards the room at the end of the hall. Just as I passed a small conference room, a familiar, smiling voice speaking English, cool and effortlessly poised, drifted from inside the slightly ajar door. So, the underlying logic of this model could actually be optimized to be more forward-thinking. My steps froze instantly. Through the crack in the door, I saw a few people seated in the conference room. At the head of the table was a stern-looking middle-aged man in a tailored suit, my advisor nodding frequently beside him. And with her back to the door, sitting opposite them, that slender figure in a champagne silk blouse, hair slightly curled, confidently presenting to the projection screen. It was Chloe Peterson. How was she here? Miss Peterson is truly talented and insightful. The middle-aged man nodded admiringly, his tone clearly showing his high regard. "No wonder my father mentioned you so many times, asking you to lead this initial liaison." Chloe Peterson gave a slight nod, her demeanor modest yet poised. "Mr. Henderson, you flatter me. I'm just doing my best. Your group's strength and vision are the true guarantee of our partnership's success." She turned her head, her gaze seemingly casually sweeping past the door, briefly meeting mine. "No surprise, no sok." Only a knowing, almost expectant glint. She knew I would come. The villainy point's 99.9% progress bar subtly flickered. My advisor saw me outside the door and quickly waved me in. "Ethan, come in. We were just talking about your project." I braced myself and pushed the door open. All eyes turned to me. Chloe Peterson also turned, looking at me, her face showing a perfectly polite, first-meeting smile. "This must be Ethan Hayes." She stood up, extending her hand to me, her movements graceful and impeccable. "Hello, I'm Chloe Peterson, the temporary consultant for the Henderson Group's academic visit. We were just discussing the visual recognition module you're leading with the professor. It's quite inspiring." Her hand hovered in the air, her posture flawless. I looked at her hand, then at her eyes, calm and unwavering, yet harboring hidden whirlpools. Under the gazes of my advisor and Mr. Henderson, I had no choice but to extend my hand and shake hers lightly. Her fingertips were still cool, a brief touch. "You're too kind, Miss Peterson." My voice was dry. "No need for modesty, Ethan." Chloe curved her lips, turning to Mr. Henderson. "Uncle Frank, Ethan is one of our school's brightest minds in this field. The module he spearheads truly stands out in terms of accuracy and algorithmic innovation. Personally, I believe it aligns perfectly with our group's investment direction for cutting-edge technologies." In a few words, she skillfully guided the conversation to my project, her tone professional, her assessment objective. Mr. Henderson clearly trusted her judgment, looking at me with even greater interest. Oh, Chloe, you're so impressed? Well then, Ethan, would you like to introduce it in more detail? My advisor looked at me with an encouraging gaze. I suppressed the turmoil in my heart, walked to the projector, connected my laptop, and began explaining my research findings. Throughout the entire presentation, Chloe Peterson listened quietly, occasionally asking one or two incisive questions, her tone professional, her gaze focused, completely the picture of a diligent consultant. But only I knew the surging undercurrents hidden beneath her seemingly calm gaze. She was evaluating my worth, like assessing a precious item about to be added to a collection. So, through this adaptive algorithm, we can reduce the error rate to below 0.01%. I concluded. Mr. Henderson nodded in satisfaction. Excellent, truly outstanding. Chloe, your judgment was spot on. Chloe Peterson smiled faintly. Ethan's own excellence is the real factor. She picked up a teacup from the table, taking a delicate sip, her movements elegant. Then, as if suddenly remembering something, she looked at me, her tone casual. By the way, Ethan, regarding that data interface compatibility issue we just mentioned, I have some materials from previous projects that might be helpful. If it's convenient, perhaps we could chat alone after the meeting? My advisor immediately jumped in. Convenient, of course, it's convenient. Ethan, make sure to learn from Miss Peterson. Mr. Henderson also chuckled. It's always good for young people to connect. All my escape routes were blocked. I looked at Chloe Peterson. She held her teacup, the rising steam blurring the faint curve on her lips. Of course, Miss Peterson, I heard myself reply. The meeting ended. My advisor escorted Mr. Henderson out first. Only Chloe Peterson and I remained in the conference room. The door closed softly, sealing off outside sounds. She set down her teacup, and the professional smile instantly vanished from her face, replaced by a cold, playfully scrutinizing expression. She stood up, walking slowly to the projector screen, her finger tracing the algorithm structure I displayed. Very impressive, Ethan, she said without turning around, her voice unervingly clear in the spacious room. You know, watching you stand here, radiating confidence and talent, admired by everyone. She turned, leaning against the table, arms crossed, her gaze falling on me like a surgeon's scalpel. It makes me want to completely privatize that brilliance for myself. Villainy points 99.9% flickered wildly, the red glow almost overflowing my vision. The Henderson Group. I try to change the subject. Old family friends on my mother's side, she said dismissively. Just a quick call from me. She took a few steps closer to me, her heels clicking crisply on the floor, each step echoing my accelerating heartbeat. Now, shall we discuss the data interface issue? She stopped in front of me, looking up, the distance between us dangerously close. What exactly do you want? I took a step back, my spine hitting the cold wall. What do I want? She chuckled, reaching out, her fingertips lightly brushing the collar of my shirt, the gesture intimately invasive. I want to give you a choice, Ethan. Her gaze was locked on mine, allowing no escape. Option A. She held up one finger, its tip almost touching my chin. Accept the Henderson Group's investment. Establish a joint lab with you leading it. You'll gain prestige, status, countless resources. The condition is everything about you, your time, your achievements, your future, belongs to me. Option B. She held up a second finger, her eyes suddenly turning cold, sharp with menace. With just one phone call from me, all your academic efforts, including this project you're so proud of, will be utterly wasted due to some perfectly reasonable circumstances. Your advisor won't be able to protect you. No one will. She lowered her hand, leaning slightly forward, her red lips almost touching my ear, her warm breath carrying a deadly threat. Will you be a brilliant golden bird, but only mine? Or a homeless stray, with nothing, forced to depend on me? Her voice held a twisted delight. Choose. I leaned against the wall, my body cold, looking at her face so close, filled with possessive intent, watching the frantically flickering, almost full villainy progress bar in her eyes. I finally understood. She had already laid out an inescapable net. No matter how I dodged or struggled, I would eventually fall in her palm. From the moment she stepped onto this campus, the outcome had been predetermined. My so-called passive strength, my sense of control, was nothing more than my last, futile struggle in her meticulously crafted script. The system emitted its final, shrill alarm, my vision consumed by crimson. Warning! Villainy points at 100%. Irreversible plot triggered. My vision was consumed by crimson. The system's sharp alarm was like a needle violently stabbing into my mind. Warning! Villainy points at 100%. Irreversible plot triggered. Final phase mission issued. Accept imprisonment. Complete vicious female. Lead final domestication. Accept imprisonment? Complete domestication? To hell with the system and the mission. Under Chloe Peterson's gaze, filled with twisted delight, the moment she almost touched my ear, uttering those two cruel options, a primal rage, suppressed for too long, surged within me, tearing down the dam of my reason. To hell with the golden bird. To hell with the stray dog. I violently lifted my hand, clamping down hard on her wrist, which was almost touching my cheek. The force made her wince, caught off guard. Chloe Peterson. I almost snarled her name through gritted teeth, my voice guttural and hoarse with fury. Who the hell do you think you are? She clearly hadn't expected my sudden outburst. A flicker of surprise crossed her eyes, but it was quickly replaced by a deeper, almost excited darkness. My grip on her wrist was iron tight, yet she didn't struggle. She just looked up at me, that cold, eerie curve returning to her lips. Finally, no more pretending, Ethan, she whispered, with a joy like discovering a hidden treasure. I'm sick of it, I roared, swinging my other hand out, not to hit her, but to slam it against the wall beside her head. Bang, a dull thud. A sharp pain shot through the back of my hand, and the wall seemed to vibrate. She didn't even blink, instead smiling even more widely, as if the more I lost control, the more satisfied she became. Yes, just like that. She murmured, her wrist, still held in my grip, even turned to lightly scratch my palm with her fingertips, an irritating, provocative touch. Give me your real emotions, Ethan. Stop wearing that cold, indifferent mask. Hate me, rage at me. Anything is better than that damn indifference. Villainy points 100%. The crimson words burned like a brand in my vision. The system's cold prompt kept repeating the accept imprisonment mission. To hell with you. I violently released her wrist, as if I'd touched something foul, shoved her away, and turned to rush out of the suffocating conference room. Stop! Her voice, not loud, yet held an undeniable authority, rang out behind me. My hand was already on the doorknob. You can leave, Ethan, she said, calmly smoothing the sleeve I'd just crumpled, her tone returning to its all-controlling composure. But the moment you step out that door, I guarantee that within 3 days, your mother, lying in a private medical center back home, kept alive by expensive medication, will immediately lose all her medical resources. My movements froze instantly, my blood seemingly turning to ice. How did she know? I spun around, staring at her in disbelief. She gave me a sweet, yet utterly cruel smile. Surprised, I know? Ethan, from the day you decided to cultivate me, everything about you has been out of your control. She walked slowly to the window, watching students come and go on the campus below, the sunlight outlining her slender, yet resolute figure. Oh, and I forgot to tell you, the largest shareholder of that private medical center has my last name. She turned her head, light and shadow dividing her face. So choose, Ethan. Will you stay and become my possession? Or will you walk out and gamble with your mother's life? She turned, crossing her arms, leaning against the window, like a hunter waiting for her prey's final struggle. I'll give you 10 seconds. 10. My hand, gripping the doorknob, knuckles white from the force, trembled slightly. 9. Cold sweat trickled down my forehead. 8. My mother's pale, dependent face flashed before my eyes. 7. The system's cold mission prompt intertwined with the cruel threat of reality. 6. Nowhere to run. 5. All my struggles, all my resistance seemed so laughable in this moment. 4. In the end, I had come to this. 3. Cornered by her. 2. I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath, as if summoning every last ounce of my strength. 1. Time was up. I released the doorknob. The metal handle sprang back, making a faint click. In a silent conference room, it sounded jarringly loud. I didn't turn around, my back to her, my voice hoarse and dry, laced with a weary resignation. You win. Behind me, I heard her satisfied, soft footsteps. She walked up behind me, so close I could feel the warmth of her body and that familiar cold scent. Then, 2 arms slowly wrapped around my waist from behind. Her cheek rested gently against my back, the gesture almost reverently possessive, yet her words were chillingly sharp. Good. You finally, completely belong to me. Her embrace was light, yet it felt like an invisible manacle, binding me tightly. I stood rigidly, neither responding nor struggling, like a soulless puppet. In my vision, the crimson villainy points 100% flickered for a moment, then gradually faded. The system's prompt sounded again, but no longer in its cold, robotic tone. Instead, it carried a hint of human-like pleasure. Final phase mission accepted. Vicious female, lead domestication complete. 100%. Congratulations, host, for achieving ending. Eternal cage. Cage. I opened my eyes, looking at the closed conference room door in front of me. Its polished surface vaguely reflected our entwined figures, like a strange yet harmonious painting. Her arms tightened around my waist, and she announced softly, her tone undeniably possessive. From today on, where you live, what you wear, what you eat, who you see, what you do, it's all up to me. Your past, present, and future will bear only my name. Understood? Ethan. I closed my eyes, the last bit of resistance draining away. Broken syllables escaped my throat. Understood. That understood was like a key, unlocking a world I had never imagined. A cage built of gold and diamonds in the name of love. Chloe Peterson's efficiency was staggering. That very afternoon, I was invited out of my dorm. It wasn't a moving truck that came for me, but a sleek black luxury sedan with a stiff-suited driver, silent as a shadow. The car drove away from the familiar campus, crossing a good part of the city, finally stopping in front of a modern lakeside villa. Huge floor-to-ceiling windows reflected the lake and scenery, the environment so secluded it felt almost cut off from the world. From now on, this is your home, Chloe said, getting out of the car and naturally looping her arm through mine, her grip firm and unyielding, leading me towards the heavy, fingerprint and password-locked front door. Home. I forced a dry chuckle. She seemed to miss the sarcasm in my tone, turning her head to look at me, her eyes holding a childlike cruelty. What else? A birdcage. The door slid open silently at her fingertip touch. The interior space was even more expansive than it looked from outside, decorated in minimalist cool tones. The expensive marble floors gleamed, reflecting light, yet there was no warmth, cold like a perfectly designed showroom. Your room is on the 2nd floor. She released my arm, pointing towards the spiral staircase. The walk-in closet is stocked with clothes. See if they fit. If you don't like them, I'll have the brand send over the new season's collection tomorrow for you to choose from. I stood rooted. What's wrong? She turned, raising an eyebrow. My laptop, research files, and I try to salvage something of my own. Everything you need is already here, she interrupted me, walking over to the huge white sofa in the center of the living room, picking up a slim laptop. She opened it and pushed it onto the coffee table. Top-tier specs, system pre-installed. All your files, including backups of your AI project, have already been synchronized. The screen lit up, showing my familiar operating interface, even my original desktop wallpaper. A chill crawled up my spine. Her infiltration into my life was far deeper and earlier than I'd imagined. As for anything else, she walked over to me, reaching out to straighten my collar, which wasn't even askew. Her movements were intimate, like the most caring lover, yet her eyes held scrutiny and control. Those insignificant parts of your past don't need to come in. Her fingertips brushed my Adam's apple, sending a faint, cool shiver through me. From today on, you only need to look at me. Just then, a middle-aged woman in a gray suit, her expression impeccably composed, emerged from the side room, bowing slightly to Chloe Peterson. Miss, dinner's ready. This is Mrs. Davis. She's in charge of your daily needs. Chloe introduced her to me, her tone flat. If you want anything or need anything, you can tell her. Mrs. Davis also bowed to me. Mr. Hayes. Her gaze was respectful, yet devoid of any curiosity or probing, as if my existence were the most natural thing in the world. I remained silent. This all-encompassing, suffocating care was overwhelming. Dinner was exquisite, like a work of art, laid out on the extra-long dining table for just the two of us. She sat at the head, I to her right. During the meal, she occasionally asked if the food suited my taste or chatted about inconsequential school gossip. Her tone relaxed and natural, as if we truly were an ordinary couple enjoying a romantic dinner. If I answered vaguely or remained silent for too long, she wouldn't get angry, but would just watch me with that knowing half-smile until I felt compelled to speak again. After dinner, she took a call, seemingly about some corporate matter from back home. She walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, conversing fluently in French, her silhouette looking sharp and competent against the night. I sat on the sofa, watching her back, then surveyed the luxurious yet cold space. Was this my future? To be kept in this beautiful cage, a pet for her to toy with on a whim? After an indeterminate amount of time, she finished her call and returned, carrying the cool slightness of the night air. She sat beside me, very close, her arm touching mine. Tomorrow morning, someone from the Henderson Group will come to formally sign the Joint Lab Cooperation Agreement. She picked up a tablet from the coffee table, pulled up a document, and handed it to me. This is the draft. Take a look. You'll be in charge, and all resources will be allocated to you. I skimmed it. The terms were astonishingly generous, practically handing over immense resources and prestige. Why? I looked up at her. Just to tie me to you. She set down the tablet, turned sideways, one hand resting on the back of the sofa, almost encompassing me, the other gently lifting my chin, forcing me to meet her gaze. What else? She chuckled, her eyes deep. Because of your unparalleled genius. Her fingertips pressed slightly. Remember, Ethan, everything I give you, fame, status, even the air you breathe, is my benevolence. You can enjoy them, but never forget the prerequisite. You belong to me. Her gaze was like a sticky spiderweb, firmly trapping me. Now, tell me, who do you belong to? I looked into her eyes, so close to mine, which clearly reflected my humiliated, stiff face. My throat tightened, each word feeling crushed as it came out. You. She smiled in satisfaction, leaning in, pressing a soft yet cold kiss on my lips, a fleeting touch. Good boy. She stood up, looking down at me. Good night, my Ethan. Your room is the first one on the left on the second floor. Remember, without my permission, do not try to leave this house. She pointed to a few inconspicuous black surveillance cameras in the corner of the living room. I'll be watching you. With that, she turned and gracefully walked up the stairs, disappearing around the second floor corner. I sat alone in the spacious living room, the faint cold scent of her still lingering in the air, like a doll casually discarded on the sofa by its owner. After a long while, I finally rose and went to the room she had designated. The room was large, with an ensuite bathroom and a balcony. The decor matched the rest of the house, minimalist and cold. The walk-in closet was indeed filled with men's clothing from various brands' current seasons, from formal wear to casual clothes, all exactly my size. Even underwear and socks were neatly organized by type. I walked onto the balcony. Outside, it faced the serene lake, the water shimmering in the moonlight. A breathtaking view. I tried to push the glass door of the balcony. It was locked tight. Looking down, it was at least 15 to 20 feet to the ground. Truly no way out. Back in the room, I opened the laptop she had prepared and tried to connect to the internet. The network was active, but all ports for sending emails or messages seemed to be intercepted. Attempts to access several common social media sites also showed IP restrictions. I leaned back in the chair, closed my eyes, and gave a bitter laugh. It really was airtight. That night, I slept incredibly restlessly. Half awake, half asleep, I kept feeling a gaze watching me in the darkness. I woke with a jolt. The room was empty. Only moonlight filtering through the curtains cast a pale strip of light on the floor. But the feeling of being watched refused to dissipate. The next morning, I was woken by Mrs. Davis's knock. Breakfast was ready. When I went downstairs, Chloe Peterson was already seated at the dining table, a cup of black coffee and a financial newspaper before her. Today, she wore a sharp white pantsuit, her long hair pulled up, revealing her elegant swan-like neck. She looked radiant. "Morning," she glanced at me, her gaze lingering for a moment, seemingly pleased with the clothes I was wearing that she had picked out. Breakfast was as exquisite as ever. As I was almost finished, the doorbell rang. Mrs. Davis opened the door, and two men in suits carrying briefcases entered, their demeanor respectful. Mr. Hayes, the representatives from the Henderson Group have arrived." Chloe Peterson elegantly dabbed her lips with a napkin, stood up, and extended her hand to me, her smile flawless. "Come on, Mr. Hayes, time to sign your sole contract." Her tone held a playful intimacy, yet her eyes were as cold as ever. I looked at her hand, then at the waiting representatives by the door and the open doorway behind them. Outside, the sun shone brightly. Inside was the invisible web she had woven. I silently stood up, ignoring her outstretched hand, and walked directly towards the door. She didn't mind, retracting her hand, and followed me, her steps unhurried. As I stepped out the front door, I subconsciously glanced back. In the corner of the living room, a black surveillance camera silently rotated, its red light like an unblinking eye, firmly locking onto me. The signing ceremony was arranged in a conference room at a five-star hotel downtown. A long conference table, draped with a crisp white tablecloth. The Henderson Group had sent a VP, along with legal counsel and assistants, a significant delegation. My advisor was there too, his face beaming with proud satisfaction. Chloe Peterson sat beside the head of the table, her posture elegant and composed, occasionally conversing in low tones with the VP from the Henderson Group, who treated her with utmost courtesy, even a subtle hint of deference. I sat in the seat she had designated for me, a thick cooperation agreement before me. All the terms, just as she had shown me last night, were ridiculously generous. Funding, equipment, personnel, all top tier, and granting me, the director, immense autonomy. If I signed my name, I would instantly gain a research platform and resources countless people could only dream of. The cost, I, along with my future, would be completely tethered to Chloe Peterson's chariot. "Mr. Hayes, so young and accomplished," the VP chuckled, raising his glass to me, using water as a substitute. "The lab will be in your capable hands from now on. Don't hesitate to ask if you need anything." My advisor also clapped me on the shoulder. "Ethan, do great work. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." I held my glass of water, forcing a smile, my gaze involuntarily drifting towards Chloe Peterson beside me. She was slightly turned, listening to the VP, a faint, polite smile on her lips. Sunlight streamed through the huge, floor-to-ceiling windows, making her seem to glow. Pure, yet dangerous. Sensing my gaze, she turned, her eyes meeting mine. No warning, no threat. Only a deep, knowing calm. As if to say, "See, this is the throne I built for you. Comfortable?" I quickly averted my gaze, but my heart involuntarily sank. The ceremony concluded. After seeing off the VP and my advisor, only she, her shadow-like driver, and I remained in the conference room. "Congratulations, Director Hayes." Chloe Peterson picked up the copy of the agreement meant for me, tapping it lightly, making a crisp sound. "From now on, your value has certainly multiplied." Her tone was unreadable, mockery or simple statement of fact. I said nothing. She handed the agreement back to the driver to store, then naturally linked her arm through mine. "Let's go. I'll take you to see your new battleground." The lab was not on campus, but in a high-tech park on the other side of the city, a brand-new, standalone building bearing the plaque Henderson Peterson Joint AI Research Center. The interior was already partially furnished, the space open and expansive, the equipment state-of-the-art, much of it still in boxes. Several researchers in white lab coats were busy working. Seeing us enter, they paused their work to greet us. "Miss Peterson, Mr. Hayes." Their eyes held curiosity and a hint of imperceptible pity. Chloe Peterson walked arm in arm with me. Like a queen inspecting her domain, briefly introducing the environment and personnel. This will be yours to manage now. She paused in front of a massive floor-to-ceiling window, looking out at the neatly manicured lawn. I hope you don't disappoint me. Her finger lightly traced my arm. A hint and a warning. After the tour, back in the car, she seemed to be in a good mood, giving the driver the address of a high-end bespoke men's store. Time to get you some decent outfits, she said casually, leaning back in the seat, eyes closed. Your status is different now. Can't still dress like a broke student. I watched the rapidly receding streetscape outside the window, silent. At the bespoke shop, the staff clearly recognized her, their attitude overly eager. She sat on a sofa in the VIP lounge, flipping through fabric swatches, occasionally looking up to offer instructions to the tailor who was draping fabric on me. Taking the waist here a bit more. Sleeve length to this point. Use this charcoal gray. It complements his skin tone. She directed with absolute certainty, as if I were merely a doll needing careful dressing. I stood like a mannequin, letting myself be manipulated. After measurements were taken and accessories chosen, she picked up a dark blue tie and walked over to me. Head down, she commanded. I instinctively bent my head slightly. She rose on her tiptoes, skillfully looped the tie around my neck, her fingers expertly tying a Windsor knot. The distance between us was so close I could count her lowered eyelashes. Her expression was intensely focused, as if she were completing an important work of art. Once the tie was knotted, she adjusted it slightly, examining her work, seemingly satisfied. Not bad. She lifted her hand, her fingertips brushing the tie knot, then slowly moving up to gently pinch my earlobe, a gesture of intimate familiarity. My taste is, as always, impeccable. Her fingertips were cool, yet their touch felt like a brand. My body was rigid. I didn't respond. The sales associate chuckled, complimenting, Miss Peterson and Mr. Hayes are truly a handsome couple, a match made in heaven. Chloe Peterson smiled, neither confirming nor denying. But her gaze, fixed on me, was one of naked possession. Coming out of the store, the sky was already nearing dusk. Instead of heading straight back to the villa, she had the driver take us to a scenic overlook by the lake. Let's get out and walk, she said, being the first to open her door. The evening breeze, carrying the dampness of the lake water. We walked side by side on the wooden boardwalk, the setting sun stretching our shadows long before us. She said nothing, just walked quietly, her gaze fixed on the shimmering lake surface. This abnormal calm made me even more wary. Remember high school, when you threw away that box of cookies I made you? She suddenly said, her voice calm and even. My heart tightened, but I didn't answer. I stood right here then, looking at this lake, and cried for a whole afternoon. She stopped, turning to face me, the sunset behind her bathing her in a halo of illusory gold. Her face held no expression of sadness, only a faint hint of mockery. I promised myself then that one day, I'd make you taste what it's like to be casually discarded, to have your dignity stripped away. Her gaze pierced me sharply. So, how does it feel now, Ethan? I looked at her, the evening breeze lifting the loose strands of hair from her forehead. Those eyes, once so clear, now held only unfathomable darkness. As you wished, I heard my voice dry and hollow. She smiled, stepping closer, reaching out to cup my cheek. Her touch was soft, but her eyes were cold. No, it's not enough. Her fingertips slowly slid down, tracing my Adam's apple, stopping at my chest, feeling my erratic heartbeat. It's still beating here. That means you don't entirely belong to me yet. Her palm pressed slightly, as if she wanted to reach through my skin and grasp that restless heart. But it's okay, we have plenty of time. I'll empty out this part of you, little by little, and then fill it with only me. Her voice was soft, yet it was like an ice pick, poisoned, piercing my heart. The sun completely dipped below the horizon, the last glimmer of twilight vanishing, and the world was enveloped in dusk. The lampposts by the lake lit up one by one, their dim yellow light outlining her blurred, dangerous silhouette. She retracted her hand, turned, and faced the dark lake, opening her arms as if embracing the endless night. See, what a beautiful cage. She turned back, giving me a sweet yet eerie smile. From today on, you are its sole prisoner. Back at the lakeside villa, The fingerprint and password locked door closed silently behind me, like a giant beast shutting its mouth. Dinner was again exquisite. Mrs. Davis served us, then quietly retreated, leaving just the two of us in the dining room. Chloe seemed to be in a good mood, even opening a bottle of red wine. She swirled her glass, the dark red liquid leaving winding trails on the crystal. The lab officially launches next Monday. Your team members' information will be sent to your email later. She took a sip of wine, looking at me. Any questions? No, I said, mechanically cutting the steak on my plate. Good. She set down her glass, leaning slightly forward, the light dancing in her eyes. Remember, Ethan, everything I'm giving you isn't for you to actually do some world-changing research. Her fingertips tapped lightly on the table, a rhythmic, soft sound. It's just a rather nice cage to keep you obediently by my side. I put down my knife and fork, my appetite completely gone. I'm full. She didn't mind, picking up her napkin to dab her lips. Then go upstairs and rest. I've had your room redecorated. Redecorated? A bad feeling rose in my gut. Pushing open the bedroom door on the second floor, I froze. The overall color scheme of the room hadn't changed, but the previously empty bedside table now held a sleek, silver-framed picture. Inside was a candid photo of me from the signing ceremony today, my face utterly devoid of expression. In a walk-in closet, my old t-shirts and jeans from the dorm were gone, replaced by the clothes she had prepared. On the desk, next to the laptop she'd provided, was a peculiar black box with several indicator lights faintly blinking. I walked over and opened the box. Inside was a smartwatch, its design understated yet luxurious. Almost the moment I picked up the watch, its screen automatically lit up, displaying a line of text. Welcome, Ethan. Below was a complex initial password. At the same time, my phone, lying on the desk, vibrated. A text message from that unfamiliar number. Wear it. Don't take it off. The tone was commanding, brooking no argument. I stared at the watch, its metal strap gleaming with a cold, hard luster in the light. This was more than just a watch. It was a GPS tracker, a monitor, an invisible chain she used to bind me. I stood rooted for a long time. Eventually, I picked up the watch. Its cool touch pressed against my wrist, fastening automatically with a soft click, like a lock, tightening definitively. The screen lit up again, displaying my heart rate, 78 BPM. Below it, a small line of text, status monitoring initiated. I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath, trying to suppress the suffocating feeling churning in my chest. After showering, I found the bedroom door was locked from the outside. I tried the doorknob. It wouldn't budge. The balcony's glass door was also locked tight. My phone had no signal, and the laptop's internet connection had been cut. I was completely confined to this room, like a specimen on display. I leaned against the door, slowly sliding to the floor. Moonlight filtered through the curtain gap, casting a pale strip of light on the floor. After I don't know how long, I heard faint footsteps outside the door. They stopped. Then, the sound of a key sliding into the lock, turning softly. The door was pushed open a crack. Light from the hallway spilled in, outlining Chloe Peterson's slender figure. She wore a silk robe, her long hair loose, her bare feet silent, like a sprite of the night. She walked in, gently closing the door behind her. The room remained unlit, save for the moonlight. She walked over to me, crouching down, meeting my gaze. Her eyes, in the dim light, were startlingly bright. Are you scared? She whispered, reaching out to cup my cheek, her fingertips damp and cool from a recent shower. I didn't answer. Her fingertips slid down my cheek to my neck, feeling my pulse. Your heart is beating fast, she murmured, as if observing something interesting. Her hand continued downward, tracing my collarbone, stopping at my chest. Through the thin sleepwear, her palm felt the strong thumping of my heart. It's beating so wildly here. She looked up at me, her eyes hazy and dangerous. Is it because you hate me, or because of something else? Her body leaned slightly forward. The distance between us was so close I could feel her breath. That familiar cold scent, mixed with a faint hint of wine, wafted into my nostrils. Tell me, Ethan. Her voice was a seductive, low murmur. Right now, what are you thinking? I looked at her face, so close to mine, those eyes churning with a thick darkness I couldn't comprehend. I'm thinking of you. I heard my voice hoarse. She paused, then smiled, her smile eerie and beautiful in the moonlight. Thinking, what about me? She pressed, her fingertips drawing circles on my chest. Thinking, when you'll be satisfied, I said, when you'll feel. It's enough. Her smile faded, her eyes suddenly sharpening. Enough? She repeated, her voice chilling. It will never be enough. Her hand tightened abruptly, clutching the fabric of my sleep shirt at my chest. You owe me, and you'll never pay it all back. Her voice held suppressed anger and a hint of imperceptible grievance. You turned me into this. You lunatic. Do you think by making me as twisted as you are, you'll be free? She shoved me hard. My back hit the door with a dull thud. She stood up, looking down at me, her chest rising and falling slightly, her emotions seemingly out of control. I'm telling you, Ethan, never. Not in this lifetime. Just wait. Wait to be entangled with me until you die. Wait to be tied to me even in hell. She was like a provoked, wild animal, venting long-accumulated resentment. But beneath that intense hatred, I almost saw the simple, stubborn girl from years ago crying uncontrollably by the lake because of a discarded box of cookies. I looked at her and suddenly felt a little ridiculous, and I actually let out a low, bitter laugh. She froze, frowning. What are you laughing at? I stopped laughing, looking up at her, the moonlight illuminating half my face. I'm laughing. A pause at us. We're truly a match made in hell for lunatics. She watched me in silence, her expression complex. After a long moment, she slowly crouched down, meeting my gaze again. The anger had vanished from her face, replaced by a deep, almost sorrowful calm. Yes, she said softly, reaching out to cup my face, her fingertips cold. We're both lunatics, so neither of us can ever leave the other. Her forehead gently rested against mine, our breaths mingling. Let it be this way, Ethan. She closed her eyes, as if weary or resigned, tormenting each other until the end of our lives. I didn't push her away. I let her lean on me. The room was silent, save for our intertwined breaths and the barely audible hum of the watch on my wrist. After I don't know how long, she looked up, her eyes having returned to their familiar, possessive calm. Sleep. She stood up, adjusting her robe. Tomorrow, you'll start working in your cage. She walked to the door, paused, but didn't look back. Good night, my prisoner. The door closed softly. The click of the lock sounded again. I remained on the floor, my back against the cold door. The smartwatch face glowed with a faint blue light in the darkness. Heart rate displayed, 65 BPM, stabilized, like a wild beast finally tamed, accepting its fate. I raised my hand, looking at the watch. Cold metal pressed tightly against my skin, like an eternal brand, declaring ownership and declaring the final outcome of this twisted relationship. I forced a bitter curve to my lips. Good, let it be this way, tormenting each other, until death do us part.